Hello, hope you're doing great. This is Mariappanni Rajan, your friendly software engineer. And this video, we're going to talk about switch statement in C++. So in a previous video, we discussed about the if-else statement and how we can make use of it to create decision trees in C++. And there's another way of creating these decision trees in C++, and that is by using these switch statements. Now let's look at the syntax of a switch statement and how we can make use of it in C++ directly. And as we are understanding how we can make use of this switch statement in C++, we'll also talk about the differences. Like compare the differences of using a switch statement versus if-else statement directly in code. Okay, so let's get started. So here, as usual, we have a basic Visual Studio IDE setup. And to create a switch statement, so basically the switch statement works by means of using a variable at its core. Okay, usually an integer variable is used at its core to make all the decisions. Okay, so based on the values that are provided in the integer variable, the switch statement makes its decisions. Okay, so we would need a variable. So let's just create a variable called choice. Okay, so we just call it choice and we'll just initialize it to have the value 0. So the actual syntax for creating the switch statement is switch. Okay, and then inside the brackets we need to provide the variable that we are taking into consideration, which is usually an integer. So here we are calling it choice, and then we open and close the curly brackets, right? And so now basically we are inside of this switch statement. Over here we can have a list of different cases. Okay, we can have a bunch of different cases, and we handle different, basically we redirect, we create this decision tree based on the value that is coming for this choice variable. So that is, so let's say the value that comes in for this choice variable is the number 5. Okay, so we can create a case for that. We can create a case called 5. Okay, so that means case 5, if the scenario, if it is a scenario where the value of this variable choice is 5, this is what the program has to do. So that's what basically we are telling C++. Okay, that's what we are telling the computer to do. Okay, so if the value of the variable choice is 5, run or execute the following set of instructions. So let's just create a print statement. We'll just say, using cout, we'll just say case 5. Okay, this is case 5. Okay, we'll just create an endl. Now it doesn't need to be just this one statement alone. You can have as many statements here. Okay, you can just have your all your functionalities. You can even call another function and all those things. So you can have pretty much whatever you want here in this block, and this block will get executed when the value of the choice variable is 5. Okay, and then let's create another case. Okay, we'll just call this case as 2. Okay, so if the value that is coming for the value, if the value of this variable choice is 2, that means this is the case. Okay, so we'll just put std here. Just let me just copy this and paste it here, and let's change this case to be case 2. Okay, so this case 2, and let's create another case just for good measure. We'll just call this case, in this case we just consider the value of maybe 7. Okay, so 5, 2 and 7. Okay, so these numbers, these cases, they are not like chronological. They don't need to be 1, 2 or 3 or anything like that. They're just any value, basically any value that would be assigned or would be given to this variable choice. Okay, that's what is, that's the criteria. So basically, like we're considering if the case is 7, if the value that comes choice is 7, so that means this is the case. Okay, this is what, these are the lines of instructions that needs to get executed. Cool. So we have created these 3 cases for in this switch statement. Now let's see what happens when we run this. Okay, so and this choice also, let's maybe give the user the option to give the choice. Okay, let's just let me just create a scene and cin, and we'll accept this choice from the user. Okay, and yeah, let's have a std out to ask the user to enter something, right? Enter a choice. Okay, so that's it. So and std endl. Cool. So with this now, let's run this code and see what happens when we execute this program. Okay, so we just run this and cool. We can see here, like in this application, it's asking us to enter a choice, and we know that we are handling only these three cases, right? Either the value being 5, 2, or 7. Okay, let's enter the value to be 5. Okay, so when we enter the value to be 5, what is it we are expecting? Okay, like especially since in the previous session we discussed on if-else statement, we are under the assumption that if the value is 5, that means this is the line that needs to get executed, and the program should just exit, right? Because that's nothing else, no other commands, right? So if the value is 5, that means this is the line that needs to get executed, and that's it, the program ends. That's our assumption. At least that's generally the assumption, but there's a interesting twist that's going to happen. Let's see what happens. So now we have entered the value as 5, and when we press enter, like over here, something interesting has happened, right? See, yes, as expected, case 5 got printed. That is, it came here to case 5, and since the value is 5, that's what we entered. It did go inside this case 5 block and it executed the code that was there, and so it printed case 5. So that's cool. That's what was expected. But in addition to this, we can see that case 2 also got printed and case 7 also got printed. Then I mean, what, that means everything is just getting printed, right? So, after it printed case 5, which is over here, it also came and printed case 2 and then case 7. Then what's the point of, even providing this and, calling this as a decision tree if everything under it is going to get printed? Because, that will be our initial reaction, right? So, especially because, if the same thing, if we had to do using an if else, how we would have done it? If we would have say if choice double equal to, if it's a comparison operation, right? So if it's double equal to 5, that means this will be a block, right? So we'll just like add it over here, and else if choice was something else such as 2, that will have a separate block, right? This will be case 2 block, right? So that's what we're used to, right? So if the choice was 5, this will be the only line of code that will get executed and the program exits. And if the choice was 2, this would be the only line of code that will get executed and the program exits. That's what we saw in our previous session when we talked about if else. But when it comes to a switch statement, why is it that after this first case got executed, all the things that are under it also are getting executed? That's a bit strange, right? Now, okay, let's do a bit more experimentation on this. Okay, so let's just see. Let's add, instead of 5, let's try maybe giving the value 2. Let's see what happens then. So if we let's just close this program, and then let's run this once again. So let's just build it once again and run it, and now this time around we'll just give the value instead of 5, which was the first case, we'll just give the value to be 2. Okay, so 2. This is interesting. Now things are getting interesting, right? Because here, when we gave the input value to be 2, the case 5 did not get executed, right? So case 5 did not get executed. It basically what happened. I mean, if you just think about it, the case 5 did not get executed, but case 2 and case 7 seem to have gotten executed, right? That is, it came to case 2 and saw that the value was 2, so it executed this line, and if there were more lines, all of the everything, all the code block will be executed under case 2, and then it came down below it and case 7 also got executed. Now we can see a pattern emerging, right? So over here, the input, the choice that we gave was 2. Now since we gave 2, it came into the switch statement. Okay, the choice is 2. It came into the switch statement. The first case, it checks if this case can be used. This is a case that you use when the value is 5, but the value is 2. The choice value is 2. Since the value is 2, you can't use this case, right? Because the numbers don't match. So it just skips this case. It goes to the next case in the order in your switch statement. It goes to the next case, which is this one. Okay, the second case, and it checks if the given choice value, the number 2, is case 2. If this number 2 is what is the value, it checks if this number 2 is what is being stored in this variable choice, and it is true, right? Because that's what we have entered. So this gets validated. So this works. Okay, this checks in. So that means now the program, like now the computer is basically going to go into this case 2, and it's going to basically execute this statement. That's what happened over here. So that's the reason we are getting this case 2 getting printed. And then switch statement, what it does, it just now continues executing everything that is under it. All the cases that are under it, below it, continues to get executed. So that's a specific nuance of this switch statement. That's a difference, basically. The main difference that we need to be mindful of when using a switch statement is it's not exactly a if else block, right? It is it is a case by case system where if it just finds the first case that checks in, that is like based on the variable that you've given on the switch, this first line, it just finds out the first case that validates, that first case that makes sense to the variable that is given here. So if 5 was the variable value, that means this is the case, right? The first case itself is work. So yes, perfect. So what's going to happen, all the cases below it are going to get executed. And if the choice was 2, as we saw right now, that means the second case validates. So second case and below, everything, all the code that is there are going to get executed. And if the choice was 7, that means like the last thing, that's the last thing, right? So that only the last case would get executed. So that's something that we should be mindful of. That's a intricacy of this switch statement. But if this is expected behavior, this is what we want, well and good, it works, every case under it, if that's what you want, that's the behavior that you are expecting, you can use this directly, no problem. Now, but many times we might not want this behavior, especially let's say for example we are extending the application that we were building in our previous session with the FLs, the add and subtract application that we built, right? So let's say we are going to get the user input to like give them the option to decide whether they want to do addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. And and let's use the switch statement instead of if else. Last time we used if else to decide between whether we're going to do addition or subtraction. Now let's do give them more option. So how will you do that? So let's just go here to this let me close this executable first, and yeah, let's go and give them ask them to enter a choice. So let's just say std, first of all let's have two numbers, int num1 equal to 0, int num2 equal to 0. We are just initializing these variables, and we'll also have an answer variable. We'll also initialize that as well to 0. Now in this section, now we'll just say and we'll also need to say std cout, and in the cout we'll just say enter first number. Okay, std handle. Okay, and we'll accept that using cin in num1. Okay, and we'll need to do the same thing for second number as well, second number, and this will be number 2. Cool. And we want them to enter a choice. Okay, and we'll just give them the choice. Okay, so we'll just give them the choice that they have. To just say one would be, one is addition, 2 is subtraction, 3 is multiplication, and 4 would be division. Okay, cool. So these are the 4 options that they have. Okay, so they can just choose whatever they want. Cool. So this looks nice. Now, so they're going to enter two numbers, and then they're going to make it choice, whether they want to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. Now let's update our switch statement also to accommodate this functionality of our application, right? So here again the choice is the main variable that we are taking into consideration to create this decision tree using switch. And the different cases that we have the different cases that we are going to support are: one for addition, so that means it needs to do the addition operation, right? So answer would be equal to num1 plus num2, right? Num2. Cool. And case 2 would be num1 minus, right? Case 2 is the subtraction, so subtraction, and case 3 would be multiplication, case 3. And we have another case, which is case 4, which is the division, right? So perfect. So we have all our cases, we have written all the cases. Now in this scenario, as we had, we saw earlier, what's going to happen is, like, the user is going to give a choice. Okay, they're going to select, maybe if they want to do addition, they'll just say 1. Okay, they'll enter 1. Now in that case, if it was a if else statement, it will come and it'll check, it'll go to the particular block where choice is equal to 1, and that all the instructions there would get executed, and we'll just add and give the back the result. Now in switch statement, as we just now saw, it's not going to be, it's not going to be like that, right? It's not going to be how an if statement would work. It's going to be a bit more involved, right? Here what's going to happen, even if the user gives the value to be 1, yes, the case 1 is going to get executed, and it's going to compute the answer by by adding num1 and num2. But it's not going to stop there, right? Because case 2, since this got validated, since the topmost case got validated, it got checked, saying that, okay, that's what is the choice, all the cases under it are going to get executed. Now that's not give us the behavior that we have, that's not the behavior that we want, right? Because here what's going to happen, answer in this line number 25 is going to be num1 plus num2, right? So let's say if you give 10 and 5 or something, so 10 plus 5 will be 15, but this again is going to get executed here. So 10 minus 5, so it's going to become 5, so here the answer was 15. Here, since it's doing this subtraction with the same two numbers, it's going to be 5. And then again over here, this is supposed to be multiplication, so it just multiply 10 and 5, so this will become 50, right? The value of answer variable is going to keep on changing. Here will be 15, here will be 5, here will be 50, here will be dividing, right? 10 divided by 5 will be 2, so at the end of the day, when you finally come out of the switch statement, and if you want to print your output, right? So if you just say answer is equal to this one, answer, if you're finally printing out the answer, we would expect this, or the user, the expected behavior is, basically, if the user had given a choice of 1 to add the two numbers, and we want the answer to be 15, but it won't be 15, because as we know that switch statement will just keep on executing everything that is under, all the cases under it will get executed as if the first case itself is validated. Now that means here the answer would be 2 instead of 15, right? As a matter of fact, we will even validate it. We'll just run this program and see if that is so, and we know that that is so. So if you just go here and say, I'll just write case, so we know what case we are printing. So case 1 answer, and we just print all the cases answer. Okay, so this will be case 2, and this will be case 3, and this will be case 4, right? So this is 4 and this is 3. Cool. So now we just print the answers in each of these cases, but since all the cases are going to get executed, because if you choose number 1, finally the answer, the ultimate final answer that you want to get is going to be something wrong, like even though you're doing addition, it's going to return as the answer of a division of those two numbers. Okay, so let's just run this and see if that is what's happening. So we just run this. So you got your terminal, perfect. So it's asking for the first number, we'll just say 10, and the second number, let's set it to 5, and it's asking us to enter a choice. Now we want to give addition with the intention of we wanted to add two numbers and give us 10 plus 5, we are expecting 15 to be printed out, but we know that since we are using a switch statement, see, as expected what's happening. So case 1, yes, actually did the addition properly. First it did the addition as we expected. So in the first case 1, it did do 10 plus 5, and the answer is 15. See in this line, the answer over here in case 1, it did do the addition, and it even printed it over here in case 1. But then what happens, since this case 1 got validated, it works, so that means all the cases under it are also going to get executed. So that's that's the reason what's happening here is case 2, 10 minus 5, it became 5, and case 3, 10 into 5 became 50, and case 4, 10 divided by 5, now it became 2. And finally, since the value that is in the answer variable is 2, finally when outside of the switch statement, when you print out, that's the value you're getting the answer to be 2 instead of 15, which got computed, but it got replaced by the subsequent cases. Now in this scenario, we don't want this behavior, right? Where we don't want it to just keep executing all the cases that are under like a validated top case, right? In this scenario, switch offers a very useful feature called break. Okay, so after a case, right, we just need to put break. Okay, so if you add this break, what's going to happen, like this is not specific for like switch statement, by the way. You can, even for a loop, you can just break out of a loop by adding this keyword. But this is very useful here, like in conjunction for switch statement. Using breaks are most commonly, it's very commonly used. So here what you can do is, like after come to this case and execute the blocks of this case 1, if you put break at the end, right, it'll just break out of the statement, switch statement, and come out. If you don't put break, it's just going to continue to the next cases, and all the cases are going to get executed. If that's the intended behavior, you don't need to put break. But in this particular scenario, in our application, we need that break, because when user selects add, we want it to only add. So here we can just say break, and we'll just put break statements in all our cases. So in all our 4 cases, we have breaks, right? So after that particular case gets executed, it's going to break out of the switch statement and come out and just print the answer from that respective case, and not calculate all the answers from all the cases, and not be replaced by the answers from all the cases. Anyway, so here, since we have added this break, now let's run our application and see what's happened, what happens, right? So yeah, so and it's asking us the first number, let's enter the number to be 10, the second number, let's enter it to be 5, and now we want to addition, topmost operation, topmost case. So previously, before we added these break statements, all the cases were getting executed. Now since we had a break, if you press 1 now, yes, cool, as expected, only this case 1 got executed, and we got the answer computed to be it added those two numbers, 1 and 2, 15, and it just broke out, it came out of that switch statement, and finally we got the result. The resulting answer is the same number, right? Like it's not getting replaced by the cases that are below it, right? So we are getting the expected answer, which is 15. Perfect. Now, and this will now just work, even if you try a different operation, for all the operations is going to work. So if you even if we try to do maybe multiplication, it's just going to do only the multiplication activity and just come out of it. Okay, so it's just saying 5 into 10, 50, and that's the answer. It just does that operation alone and it just comes out. So yeah, so this is really cool, this is really exciting, right? So now we can make use of switches for our use case. If you don't, I mean, like basically, if you want all the cases under it to get executed, if you want all the cases under a validated case to get executed, don't use breaks. But if you just only want a particular case to get executed, make use of these break statements. And in addition to this, right, like, so when in if else, we saw that there is something called else block. That is, we had if block, we had else if block, and then we had something called the else block. That was like a catch-all. If any of the conditions above are not satisfied, then the else block will just catch anything else. So similar to that, in switch also we have a block called default block. Okay, so default is basically the block where like if you say if any of these choices 1, 2, 3, and 4 are not present in the choice variable, that is the block where it will go to, and there you can catch, it will be like a catch all where you can if input other than these 4 numbers are given, that's an invalid input, right? So you can just, like you mentioned, that it's an invalid input in the default block. So you can just come here to the default block, and there you can just print out, just copy this over here, and we'll just print out saying that it is an invalid input. So this is an invalid input. Cool. So that's it. So perfect. So this is, let's also see this in action. So let's just run this, and now, so yeah, so we the first number 10, second number 5, and now like these are the 4 choices, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, this is a typo, it should be 4, but anyway, so like here the choice should be either 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? But if the user inputs some other number, something like, let's say 5, which is not a choice, right? If they enter 5, it will just say invalid input. And this default statement is this default case is useful in this respect. It will help us to catch things that are inputs that are not handled by the cases that are above it. So yeah, so this was the switch statement in C++. It's another way in which you can create these decision trees in your programs. I hope this video was useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video. Cheers.